Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out. ccgprime.com with over 100,000 Force of Will singles, as well as out-of-print boxes from the past, and TCG accessories, as well as fowlibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at fowlibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer patrons Shukong Fu, Vite Ramen, and Maxime Van He. Thank you for your support. Class is in session.
Which spoilers are we starting from? Athena stuff?
Literally the Athena stuff. Hello, everybody. Speaking of what we're starting with, welcome back after a long week and weekend of Force Will to your favorite ever live Force Will vodcast. It's Office Hours, featuring myself, DMO73, who didn't expect to be doing this tonight, but then they were like, nah, we're doing spoilers this week. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to be tired after a GP because we got to talk about them. And I'm joined, as always, by Mike Rants.
Actually, this is Paul Reisman. I'm here inhabiting the body of Mike Rants.
Impressive. Paul is very tired because he is a pastor and yesterday was Easter. So he's taking the night off. Good for him. But we, just before we get started, I do want to say thank you all so much if you hung out with us during the stream over the weekend. That was an absolute blast. We had a great time with that. And we saw some very interesting matches on both days. A lot of cool takes on what Wanderer might be experiencing and how might Wanderer decks might change even after just one event, which will be cool. And I do want to say, as we're talking about spoilers tonight, if you like in the cards that you're seeing, you can get pre-orders of boxes right now from Odyssey Games down in the description. Already there. Get those pre-orders in so you can get some boxes. I believe this time around, because of the shift in the pre-release kits being how they're being done now, I think Odyssey is shifting to just doing regular boxes so that you will get actual packs as opposed to the pre-release packs. I don't know for sure if they've updated that on their website, but when I checked earlier today, it was just regular boxes. So just as a heads up, for those of you who've done pre-release kits in the past, I don't think Odyssey's doing pre-release kits this time, but they are doing really great deals on boxes, and you can check those out in the link in the description. Rustin's gonna go buy it right now. Let's go. So with that though, let's
the tail end
of his top 8, where he took round 5 to a 2 draws 1 win match. This man he self-destruct buttoned game 1 and 2.
Yo.
And we went to game 3. Rustin, the true MVP of the event. We're gonna jump in with spoilers. We're gonna start with our first ruler, Athena. Mike, it's your girl. It's Athena. Green, black, red, high god. Tails, so you can't have villains. And she just has Revolution Order, Force Command, Death. But the big thing of the Athena mechanic is what's her Order of Death and Rebirth, which has the usual Calling Stone thing, but the only thing it provides is Force Command Rebirth. So a different Force Command on the front and the back. So just off the cuff,
that skull, that's a cute touch. That's really cute.
Like, hey, I'm a flower pot now. Hey, I was
Hello,
a dead guy.
I'm a skull.
I'm very fancy. I'm a very fancy skull.
So nice.
So let's off the cuff. What are your thoughts about this idea of having that her mechanic is just purely this changing of Force Command, essentially?
I love blank rulers. I think blank rulers are some of the coolest things in the game. I really think that we're going to see something special here. My favorite part of the Athena flip is when you say, I'm going to flip into Order of Death and Rebirth. And opponent's like, all right, cool. I'm ready for this enter effect to go off. And then nothing happens.
Well, I imagine that the thing that you're ordering probably has an enter effect.
I'm just going to order in a Kiki. That's all that I'm embarrassing right now.
That has an enter effect.
Sure. Anyway.
You're full of it tonight. You're full of some spice tonight.
I'm feeling spicy, man.
No enter effect. Order Kiki. Immediately has an enter effect.
I'll choose not to activate it.
That's not how that works.
I'll choose not to activate it. It's
Okay,
fine.
cool. No, your opponent just has. It's okay. Your opponent has Abdul, the
My opponent
ruler, the flipped
absolutely has
J ruler. Yeah.
100% has Abdul on the
So that
board,
your
right?
enter effect doesn't trigger,
It just
and
makes
it's just
sense, man.
yeah,
It's turn
100%.
1. My opponent's just slam jam the Crucible Estus Stone, untapped his ruler with some magical force beyond my comprehension, and then judgment into Abdul.
Clearly.
Clearly that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about our first card, which is, speaking of, shows an impact of what this means with the birth, death, and rebirth. Athena enters the game of gods. Your opponent banishes a resonator. If they don't, they discard a card for 1 black. If you're on her front side, you can remove up to 3 cards in your graveyard from the game, then draw that many cards, where X is the number of cards removed. But if you're on her rebirth side, you can put up to 3 cards back from your removed area into your graveyard and then recover Y entities, which can include magic stones, where Y is the number of cards put into your graveyard this way. So she's very clearly going to be dealing with let's move cards back and forth between the graveyard and the RFG, which I think is very cool mechanically. This card is also very good, and I'm glad it doesn't have quick cast.
I was about to say, I can't wait for this card to see 0 play not having quick cast.
No, I don't think that's true. I think the fact that by itself it is a okay. Again, you did not watch the GP this past weekend. Stuff that didn't have quick cast was very good.
That's just because Fairy Spell's broken, but we knew that.
So then this card in an environment with Fairy Spell would be good because it dodges Fairy Spell. Mike, I'm going to need you to leave. I think you're done for the night.
Jeremy, if you're 1-for-1ing with a Fairy Spell, that's just... It makes me a little sad on the inside.
Anywho,
I want to cancel thing that costs 3 with Fairy Spell. I want my opponent to suffer.
So the fact is, this lets you recover a stone. So it obviously, it's up to 3 target entities, or not even target. It's just up to 3 entities. So they could shift based on what your opponent does in response. We all also have confirmed that at time of cast, we'll lock in the text on this card. So if I'm on my rebirth side and in response you kill the Athena, whatever I'm ordering, I still get the rebirth side, but I don't gain the death side. So, paying 1, even if this is a pay 1, immediately recover that stone, recover 2 attackers, or, 2 other things, I think that this card is very, on top of forcing your opponent to banish a thing, or a potential discard, I think this is a very nice card overall.
I mean, it's a card that has an effect.
Maybe I should have just
I do
done
think
this myself tonight.
I do think that the put 3 cards from removed area into your graveyard is actually something that's pretty significant in a format where we have stuff like a lot of Asmodeus support, honestly. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's something that can be made out of the cards in that support suite plus this. Like, there's the one green demon.
Asmodeus Attendant?
Yeah.
Where we saw him getting cast this part. RFG the top 5 to then recover 3 stones.
Yeah.
Very much could see a card that could see some play in Athena, for sure.
100%, because if you cast it in with Athena, like order it,
then you'll recover some stones. Yeah, yep. Then you recover stones, and then you could use those stones to move the cards back. Yep, there's some very neat interactions there.
There's probably that's 8 cards out of your deck that does that kind of combo of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
very interesting. There's probably some kind of combo in there.
Off the cuff, when we're looking at this, part of me wonders if Athena's probably not going to be very combat focused. I imagine if she's going to have strategies that involve moving cards back and forth in order to find the win, not necessarily whether it be like drain or, applying a stat neg to the board based on whatever, I just wonder if she's going to have some kind of other way to use cards in between those 2 zones to push her to a win, which would be really interesting to see how that goes, because that's very different than anything we've had up to this point in Force of Will's history. So I'm for it. Let's move into our good old boy Genshi Tenshon, Dragonflame. So this is Dragonflame. He is
I'm gonna think about that actually. Anyway,
he is Dragonflame, white, red, blue. cannot have. He's a villain. Has Force Command Flame. Revolution Order turns him into Order of Flame. You gain 5 dragon power. Insert DBZ memes here. The ordered card gains dragon, so it becomes in addition to its regular race, it becomes a dragon. And then it does the you may call a stone or whatever. So the red, white, and blue deck is dragons. Okay. And dragon power, which seems to be very from what the cards we've seen so far, the card we're also going to talk about that was spoiled today, seems to be kind of like a static number that we're just going to tick up as the game goes on. And then based on how big that number is, our cards will have more of an impact. So again, what does the scouter say about his dragon power? It's over 90.
It's like 10.
Yeah, it's, I mean 15. That's still pretty good.
You know something that really hurts my heart, Jeremy?
What's up?
They could have made this dragon power counters. They could have given us some Millium 2.0 support, but they just chose not to.
Oh, instead of making it dragon power, just like instead of dragon power counters?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope.
Man, we're going to support Wanderer. Also, fuck Wanderer.
I mean, this set is still like
I know.
Was designed probably before they made the announcement of the set designed to Wanderer, so it's okay. It's okay, buddy. Then we see his first card, which is his Enters the Game of Gods. We'll be going through the whole suite. It's just 1 red, 1 colorless. Choose one. Target. Choose a J resonator your opponent controls, so it doesn't target. It loses all abilities until end of turn. Then this card deals X 100 damage, where X is your dragon power. So if you have 10 dragon power, it deals $1,000, and so on and so forth. Other mode is target resonator you control gains +X+X, where X is your dragon power. And then for Force Resonance Flame, it only costs you 1 red, so it's a thunder, or better. And you can choose both of the modes instead. So it's a pump and kill for Dragonflame.
Card seems bad to me.
I think this card, if it didn't have the cost reduction for Dragonflame, I would agree. The fact that I mean, obviously, the inherent weakness of this card is that if you have 0 dragon power, it doesn't do anything, right? That's the weirdness of it. Like, you have to already kind of be on a roll. But from what we're kind of seeing, the strength of this card is going to come down to how easy is it to generate dragon power. Right, that's the biggest piece outside of order. Because if order is the only way we're producing dragon power, which I doubt that's the only way, but if it is, then this card is like, because it's too for a red wants to go like in your face kind of deck. That feels weird, you know. But if it's easier to generate dragon power outside of ordering, then I could see this card getting very good, especially since it doesn't choose or it doesn't target. Can hit J rulers and gets around barrier and eternal.
I feel like there's some issue here. I don't know why, but I feel like there's going to be some judge headaches involving that choose a J resonator your opponent controls part. That's just me, though.
In what way?
Like, it feels like a card that just should say target.
No, but that's the whole point. Is it's supposed to get around barrier? I mean, the thing is that we've had choice before this, and it's always been fine.
I don't know. It's something about the way this card is worded just kind of irks me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Personally speaking. I also think.
Yes, Minha building. Oh yes, Minha building a deck for a ruler, having seen 3 of his cards.
To be fair, it's all Min needs.
That's true. I'm
just very disappointed that it's not all one-ofs, because I feel like that would just make it way too overpowered. If anybody could find the 400 best cards in Force of Will and find a way to put them all into a deck, it would be Mint. Let's be real here.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so we've got Typhon, the infinite monster. Let's talk about Typhon. So, High God Machine, 5 cost, or 5 attribute. You cannot have cards with tails in your deck or Magic Stone deck. You cannot have non-darkness cards in your deck. This means specifically your main deck, and it does mean that you can have multi-attribute cards. They just have to have darkness in them somehow. And then you have no maximum deck size, but you must have at least 100 cards in your deck. But when you would set your starting life, you set it to X 100 instead, where X is the total number of cards in your deck up to a maximum of 200. So your maximum starting life total is 2 grand. And then Revolutions for 0 and has Force Command Infinity. And then on his backside, he is the Order of Infinity, and on enter, you reveal a machine you own from the sideboard and keep it revealed until the end of game, and that's all he does. So let's talk about it. You go first, Mike. Because I have some thoughts.
What a nightmare for any judge who just want to have a really good time and enjoy their life playing this Force of Will.
Okay, so that's a good point. We have come up with a solution for that at events. Okay. At time of deck registration, it does add an extra step to the day, but at time of deck registration, a judge counts your deck and signs a piece of paper with what your starting life total is. And you have to present that to your opponent at the beginning of each round. We do it once and then we're done. For the whole day, we can verify this is your starting life total, right? That's very easy. It is an extra step. I get it. It's a fix.
It is a fix.
Deck checking and writing a deck list for Typhon are going to suck.
Oh, yeah. Especially when you come up with my list, where it's just going to be every single darkness card available in Force of Will as a one-of in the deck.
Also, please...
I sense some angry Jeremy.
This is an appeal to your heart, to the hearts of people. We all know about the Yu-Gi-Oh. No.
This is Force of Will.
Which is why I think this works for me to try to do it. We are all very much aware of the meme of the 1,000,000 card deck from Yu-Gi-Oh. We get it. We understand it. We don't do that here. It's not needed. You're not being original. And here's the reason. You're not being original. It's not really funny. And it's not helpful. It's been done.
Unless you do it on Untap.
On Untap, sure. Go for it. Whatever.
I'm going to do that.
Sure. At an event, do not try to be like those guys who showed up to the Yu-Gi-Oh event with a 1,000,000 card deck. It's old hat. We understand. No one's going to have a fun time with that. Not even you.
Just stick to 200. That's what you're doing with this guy.
Like, I honestly, we had this conversation with Babatunde during the event. Competitive Typhon, to me, based on what his stuff is, because we'll get into the next card in a minute, based on what the rest of his support suite is, competitive Typhon, to me, honestly, feels like 100 to 150. Because the idea of trying to, in a competitive environment, screw over my consistency with a 200 card deck just for life total's sake doesn't feel great, because we do have decks that can, once they get rolling, chunk out like 3 grand damage a turn. And they're just like, cool, you have a bajillion cards. I am protected and will chunk you for 3,000 damage a turn while you're trying to find something in your inconsistent deck. Right? I mean, is that fair? Right?
Catch reminder that life points literally do not matter in Force of Will.
Right. Like, you can get killed. So the idea of tanking my consistency that much in order to get that much more life. I mean, like, Almerius as it stands, 7 grand outside of, and we watched it in the top 8. Almerius having that extra 3 grand outside of like pop-off combo decks, 7 grand is relevant, especially when combined with a good 40 card consistent package, right? So then you say, okay, cool. I can get to 10 grand, 3 grand more, but I have to add 60 more cards to my deck to do that, right? So something has to be said for not being Minha and having his weird, crazy consistency with these decks that are insane, and the fact that your consistency will get hurt by having more cards in your deck. Just saying. That being said, I'm excited to build it. I think it'll be fun to play on the channel. I'm also very excited to try to work with Rustin to build a raid boss fan format. I kind of just want to build like a 3v1 raid boss format for Typhon, and I think that could be really fun to goof off with. Cough, cough, also, yeah, cough, cough, Inferno. Just like, that's nice 20,000 life you had. Would be a shame if someone set it to 4 grand and your deck was inconsistent as hell.
Or 2 grand.
Or 2 grand and your deck was inconsistent as hell.
The only thing I want to do is just mill out my deck and use one of the spoiled cards from Darkness to just, you know, dome my opponent for infinite damage.
Not to mention, like, 25% of your deck needs searches and draws. Turbo Mill and play Necronomicon. There's also enough alt win condition cards that make like totals irrelevant. Yeah, for sure. Like, do I think that he has potential? Yes. Do I think that he will be a gatekeeper to certain decks? Yes. But also, I'm not like concerned. Does that make sense? In the long,
you know what I'm gonna do, Jeremy? You know what my life goal is going to be now?
Go for it.
I want to alt win condition down Typhon by getting all 6 attributes under.
Win the game. You win the game.
You win the game. You win the game.
Win the game. Win the game. There you go. That's it.
Can't play it in Typhon. Might as well play it against Typhon.
Yep, got it. True enough. So let's talk about his first card that he's got spoiled here. This is Typhon's Antibodies. It's 1 black 2/2. You can play any number of copies of this card in your deck. Swiftness, Precision, Flying, and Pierce. Cannot attack your opponent as long as they control a J/Resonator. So as long as they have something on field, it's just kind of stuck there. Cards gain +2/+2 for each card of its own name in all public zones and owned revealed outside of the game. So, Graveyard, Field, RFG. Force Resonance Infinity. When this card is revealed from outside the game, draw a card. So we're starting to get a little bit of a sense of what Typhon's mechanic is. Probably through his order, he's going to... I mean, I'll say this. It's very clear to me that Typhon's sideboard is just for game 1. Typhon is not trying to play a match. He's trying to play 1 game, right? So to that end, Typhon's sideboard is probably going to have a lot more of these kinds of things where they're going to do something when revealed, so you'll keep them in the sideboard. We've already seen Zwei, the pre-release promo, that he already talked about, that he costs different when he's revealed from outside the game and stuff like that. Overall, I mean, I'm really glad that this card says it can't attack. Overall, kind of neat. Thoughts?
Man, the fact that this says can't attack your opponent as long as they control J-Resonator sounded really relevant until you remember that Typhon can final battle 5 times respectably within a game.
Yeah. Yeah, he can.
Like,
he can final battle you and just be like, this
thing is just keyword soup, and the design looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. And you know what? We could just keep having dragons and machines mesh together with wings and sparkly bits and all the fucking... Kazuki Takahashi just stopped caring about 10 years ago, so now he peaked at Stardust Dragon, and everything has to look like it.
There you go. Can you have just 4 in sideboard, or like Crocodrak, a whole sideboard deck with it? I think if something refers to your deck, it's specifically for main deck. So you'd only be able to have 4 copies of this card in your sideboard.
If you get to the 4th Typhon's Antibodies, just consider yourself the best
player. Why would you even want to, though? I mean, you just have to order 4. You just have to... I have to imagine that there are better things for him to be revealing than just draw a card. Yeah. Also, yeah, Charlie's favorite keyword pairing: Precision plus Pierce. The number of questions that are gonna come up, although it can't attack. So then
stop asking questions.
Why does it? So that's an interesting question. That's an interesting point, though. It has precision, but it can't attack if your opponent controls anything. So why does it need precision?
Because it can't attack your opponent as long as they control your opponent.
Oh, okay.
Reading the card does in fact
reading a card does in fact explain the card. That makes sense.
I don't even play this game right now, and I know how to read cards sometimes.
We were disappointed that you weren't there for the Wanderer GP, Mike. It is your.
We're gonna have Wanderer GPs moving forward.
Yeah,
This
you'll
one
be
I
there.
didn't need to be a part of. Everybody knows how to break things.
86 players. It was nice.
86 players is pretty nice.
First, okay, let's move on to Zeus. First Olympian, our last
Zeus.
order ruler of the cluster. 5-color tails, may not have more than 1 copy of any card in your deck. Singleton ruler. Force command Olympians. And then
I can't believe Min isn't playing this card. This card literally says IU on it.
Yeah.
It just says I am IU. It doesn't even need actual text. It just says me IU, play IU, me play Sword Strike, me win game. Anyway,
Force command Olympians. On enter, you may search your deck for a new 12 Olympian gods revealed and put into your hand. If you do, shuffle your deck. It gains the race new 12 Olympian gods and then has the spell things. So
this doesn't feel like a Force Will card, Jeremy.
What do you mean? Doesn't look like a Force Will card?
No, it doesn't feel like a Force Will card. Like the enter effect says you may search your card for a thing on the order side of a ruler, and it says reveal it and put it into your hand instead of into the field. And I just don't get
but that's the reason why. So so here's the thing. You're right, but we immediately have an answer to that when we look at Zeus's Enter the Game of Gods, because Zeus's Enter the Game of Gods, 1 green, 1 white, quick cast. You can play 4 copies.
Cherry's colorblind.
Whoop. You can play 4 copies of it if you're Zeus. So Zeus is normally singleton, but can play 4 copies of this. Choose 1. Produce 2 will in any color combination to play a new 12 Olympian gods. Put a new 12 Olympian gods from your graveyard or RFG back on the bottom of your deck. Or if you're playing as Zeus, search your deck for any 12 Olympians and put it into your hand. This counts as this is treated as being revealed by the enter effect of the order. This, to me, says that new 12 Olympians are going to do something when revealed by the order.
I really love the fact that this card has so much text in it that not only do they have to scrunch the letters together to make it extra fucking vertical, but also there's no flavor text. They couldn't afford more space for the flavor text, so it's just...
Yeah, we'll have to see how the formatting on this card looks in person, because I have noticed that there has been a little bit of a weirdness between like the images that they've sent have looked not as crisp as when the card is in my hand, if that makes sense. So there's always a little bit of like digital distortion, it seems like, for this cluster when we see cards. So I wonder how this is going to look text wise when it comes out. But that being said, so the enter effect is, again, well, search your deck for any 12 Olympian and put it to your hand. And then this Zeus's enter works to do the same thing, and it counts as if you had searched for them off of the enter's order effect.
I love how the vampire's like, well, Kratos is gonna be pissed. Zeus!
So yeah, so this is interesting to me. I'm wondering if like, so hear me out. If the 12 Olympians do something or like put an effect on the chase when they're revealed by the order, even in a singleton deck, having the utility of what effect off of an Olympian do I need right now, and the ability to get it off of the spell or off of the order at instant speed, that amount of utility in a singleton deck is a little scary. I think that there's definitely, based on what those effects are, or if that's how it works, that I think is going to what gives Zeus a lot of his strength, is the flexibility of, especially since it also has ways to recycle them, like recycle the enter effects that are good, or recycle the reveal effects that are good, or whatever. I definitely think that there's something there for Zeus that has me very excited.
Yeah. Last bit of thing that was going on in another chat.
Sure.
Well, actually, 2 things. First of all,
sure,
Kodakan does not miss with his artwork. This man is the man who made Drew Lich and then Drew Lich on the back of my player card when I was at Worlds in 2018. Love that guy. Love that work. I also love how this card says you may have up to 4 copies of this card, but the ruler says you can only have 1 copy of each. So, and in Force of Will, don't outnumber dues or out prioritize dues. So I don't know how that's going to work.
I think this will specifically override it, but we'll see.
I'm wondering how they're going to do the CR for that. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be updated to work properly. But yeah, like Min says, at first look, despite being singleton, based on how these new Olympians look or what effects they're bringing to the table, Zeus looks very good. Like
I also
Zeus looks
really
very
like the fact
viable.
that. So I'm going back and forth on the Zeus, the first Olympian, between like his ruler side and his other side,
Artwork
and
wise,
like, yeah, I'm just going back and forth, and it just looks like he's going. And honestly, it's kind of fun.
oh, glad to have you here, Mike. Lightning hand. Okay,
Just go back and forth between them, Jeremy. It's really fun.
now let's go to our first Marvel rare, which is Athena's Marvel rare. We have Oberazuki, Vampire Astrologer. One black, two. What?
We got the oboe again.
The oboe. Oberazuki, the Vampire Astrologer. One black, 2/2 with tails, flying, drain, bane. Every vampire's favorite keyword: soup, flying, drain, bane.
Mikage ran rolling in her fucking grave.
Yeah. Why does Mikage need to give them drain when they'll just naturally have drain now?
It just happens.
Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Put 1 into your hand, 1 into your graveyard, 1 into your RFG. And then put X +1/+1 counters on this card, where X is the combined number of cards in your graveyard and removed area. So just by herself, if she's the first thing you cast in the game, she's going to be a 4/4 after the resolution. And that's all she does on her front side. So she's a little bit of a draw filtering kind of thing.
I didn't read the last part of that effect. Wow. Okay.
The +X+X?
The +X+X for everything in your removed area, not removed by this effect.
Yeah. Just every card that. So, we're playing in the late game. Whew! She huge.
I love my 1-drop. It's just a mountain of stats. That's my favorite.
Enter Revolution. But she does still have to resolve, and she's naturally a 2/2, so like very easy to kill. Very easy to kill. Enter Revolution. When this card is put into your graveyard from your removed area, or when a card is put into your graveyard from the removed area, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this card, and then remove a +1/+1 counter from it to give your opponent's board a -2/-2 until end of turn.
Cute little flavor win. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like this. I like this card a lot. I think that it's got some good. I think I like the fact that early on it is some like draw power, like hand fixing, which is kind of nice. I like the fact that it is low stats by itself, so there is kind of always an opportunity to be able to kill it. I like the fact that it gives you some nice board removal, like board options. And again, this is again speaking to that idea of what I said before of Athena manipulating the cards back and forth between graveyard and RFG to find her way to the win. Let's talk about Athena enters the Game of Gods, right? Athena enters the Game of Gods, moves 3 cards from RFG to graveyard. That's 6 +1/+1 counters on Oberazuki, and could then recover the Oberazuki to swing again, right? So
yeah, honestly, like that part. Plus, I'm thinking about that Asmodeus' attendant combo again.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
That recover, play.
Manipulating the graveyard would be cool. Yeah, or even not to swing in, even just to like apply the stat negs, right? Because she doesn't have swiftness by herself.
Stat negs when you can kill your opponent.
Imagine not having swiftness.
Imagine playing a format that doesn't have sprinting flame horse in it. Oh.
Imagine trying to resolve a sprinting flame horse in this environment.
Correct, but also
I'd like to target a thing to give it swiftness.
Let's talk about the fact that Athena is darkness.
I mean, she could. You could sprinting flame horse, I guess.
Yeah, and you can do it with your Ataraxis Memoria that has all 3 of those colors, which is perfect.
Except it wouldn't be all 3 of those colors when you have Oberazuki ordered, because Ataraxis Memoria would make it a black only stone.
Imagine me reading cards and knowing what attributes happen.
Man, today is that. We got 26 people hanging out in the chat, and neither of us can read. We're having a great time.
I'm really glad that everybody in chat can read except for us.
Yeah, for sure. This is a really cool card, just overall. Yeah. I like the design of it. I like the artwork of it. I think it's got good early game and good mid game and good late game flexibility.
I just realized it's not It's not vampire astronomer. It's vampire astrologer.
Yeah,
She's gonna show
astrologer.
you her She's gonna show you her crystal collection and talk about why the reason you just lost the game is because you're a Pisces.
There you go.
But anyway,
There you go. There you go. She studied the stars and she found She found the reason why you're
stars
gonna lose.
can't do it.
Not today.
Not today.
So then we have the Spirit of Decay, 1 black, 1/1, spirit. Put X +1/+1 counters on this card, and your opponent loses X 100 life, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. So, hey, I have 15 cards in my graveyard. I'd like to play this 1-drop and make you lose 1,500 life,
16,
please.
16 that kills you.
Then make you lose 1,500 life, please. And then you can remove a +1/+1 counter from this card to target J/Resonator gains -2/-2 until end of turn.
That effect literally does not matter. This card's gonna kill you.
This card is a big life
It's
loss.
straight up gonna kill you. Like, you die.
This card is a very big life loss. Like,
imagine playing Belial in this year of our Lord and Savior 2022.
And then your opponent's like, Spirit of Decay's like, cool 20 life, bro. Gone.
Yeah, literally, it's just like, I'm gonna use this effect to not lose the game and not take damage. She'll be like, okay. Die. Yeah, I was about to say, Tree's busted until this card came out.
They made this specifically for Dark Tree.
They're like, you know what? We brought back Horn of Sacred Beasts. Tree is unkillable. You literally cannot do anything unless you have immediate turn 3 hard damage to kill your Tree opponent. Let's just circumvent that with a nice little 1-drop that is a 30/30 that removes your life from the game.
Someone was watching or reading Bleach. I think more that they were watching Full Metal Alchemist.
Brotherhood specifically.
Yeah, specifically Brotherhood. Yeah, because that's the only good one. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's cool artwork. It's cool artwork for sure.
It's great artwork. Good job, Shirono Muku.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll just Inferno them back in return. Yeah, that's fair. Zhuge Liang, the perfect strategist.
Oh, yeah,
one red 4/4 Marvel Rare villain. Enter, this card deals damage equal to its attack to you, the player, like the person playing the card. Whenever an effect you control deals damage to you, it produces red. And when it's revolutionized, if damage would be dealt to you during your turn, 200 as damage is dealt to you instead. I'm about to take 1,800 damage because I cast Split Heaven and Earth. Nah, 2. This card gains +X/+X, swiftness and flying as long as it's a dragon, where X is your dragon power. This is cool. I like it a lot. Like I said before, Dragonflame, unlike Gnarly is a storm deck. Like, Gnarly is just trying to, like, look at me, play a bunch of spells in a row and do a bunch of crazy stuff and blah, 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 blah. Dragonflame very feels like an aggro mid-range kind of red. Like, I'm not trying to play a million cards in a single turn. I'm trying to establish a force and make them bigger as we go and punch you to death. And Zhuge Liang definitely feels in line with that, which I like a lot.
At least she's cute.
And immediately also people are like, pair her with Athena, and then you can just, like, as long as your life total's higher than your opponent, you can kill them. And I'm like, yes, by all means, please try to do a terrible combo.
Just play her in Tree so that she mills you 4 and then doesn't produce red.
Yeah! That's
called winning the game, bud.
That's the ticket.
That's the spice right there.
That's the spice. Yeah, I mean, this is a cool card. She's also, if you could get up to 40 dragon power,
she kills your opponent. That's
she can
cool.
kill she can just kill you, because she'll be a 44/44 by herself.
And then Bahamut's just looking for the sidelines, like, look what she needs to mimic a fraction of our power.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, cool card. I've never been much of a, like, red focused player. Honestly, none of us on this podcast are. But
that's why she's not going to see play from us.
That's why someone at my locals will play it. Probably Paul Clute will play it, and we'll have a great time.
And literally, like, out of the next 86-man tournament, there are going to be 30 people with this in their main board. It's an American GP.
But the thing is, this past American GP only had 4 violets.
That's insane.
4 violets.
You can't prove the card's broken if you're not playing it.
We have Bahamut at home. This.
Thank you, Rustin.
It's a good one, Rustin. And then the last card of the night is Increased Dragon Power. 1 red, 1 colorless quick cast. You gain 10 dragon power. If you're playing it as Flame Dragon, it cannot be canceled, and it draws you a card.
This is the biggest fucking thing I've ever seen. Just, what are you gonna do? Well, I'm gonna increase.
Just power levels, dude. It's just power levels. It's just so like. Let's talk about this, right? So the 4 rulers of this set are Life and Rebirth, Dragon Ball Z, Hades the video game, and a raid boss. Where's the lie?
I respect prokaryotic being more than I ever respect the name of this.
Increased dragon power. Zugaleong, it is Zugaleong, it is Zugaleong. Now I have 4 fire will to do stuff. I burned for 600. Come at me, bro.
Holy shit.
You wouldn't. Well, that's interesting. The exclamation point is the most interesting part of this card. Yeah. You got to increase that dragon power. Those are some rookie numbers. We got to bump those numbers up.
Oh my god. This is. And the artwork is just like, I'm going to increase my dragon power by doing this. Doing the Fire Emblem face.
Yep. And Dragonflame's inner power grew tremendously. This is the flavor text of this card.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But those are the 4 rulers. We have Life and Death, a raid boss, Hades the video game, and Dragon Ball Z.
Literally, there are 3 rulers. I do not respect Dragonflame in the slightest, especially after this.
So, like, from a competitive perspective, like, based off of just what we've seen so far, I think that Zeus and Athena would be the ones that I would look to first for competitive success. I think Typhon, based on how Typhon filters through his deck, or like what tools he gets from the sideboard, I could see Typhon being competitively successful. But I do also think that all 4 of these decks could be very fun at a casual level, both in New Frontiers and in Wanderer. And this is dragon power that has gone beyond. This is going beyond. You could go dragon power 10 plus Ultra Bros plus dragon power. You respect Zugaleong, but not Dragonflame. That's fair.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Extremely fair.
He does actually. So I'll say this. I feel bad for the man because there's actually. This is funny. This is like meta, right? So back in New Valhalla Cluster, by far the worst ruler was Fushi. Man saw no play, even at a casual level. The man saw no play. Like pretty much at all. Barely got any support. In DBV, didn't even get to show up or doesn't even show, and now he's apparently this, as opposed to Genshi Tenshon being the ruler, and him being his own like resonator card. But then even worse than that, in the story, man literally just shows up to the fight, gets stabbed in the back by his own guys, and dies. In the lore that they've published, if you go read it, like Athena shows up attempting, and she's going to try to throw the fight to Genshi Tenshon so that they can screw up Typhon's plan, but it's too late. Typhon's already infected all of his dragons. The dragon stabs him through the back. So my man Fushi was like, I am reborn! Got no love. Fushi is your boy.
I mean, same, but like, let's be real here.
Yeah, it's a shame.
There's only one time that I've ever played Fushi, and it's because I made a singleton Fushi deck that focused on getting Ragnarok on turn 4.
Min's gotta. You gotta watch. Jeremy's gonna stare. So that is funny, Minha. Fushi cheated and summoned in a dragon. Now, in the story, he's reborn as Dragonflame, and he dies and cheats in Typhon, who's a dragon. And all makes lore-wise, that's very nice.
To be fair, Sylvia did also have it bad. Wow.
Yeah, Sylvia was not treated kindly. Of the spoilers so far, I think my favorite card is Obrozuki, but who would have thought that Jeremy would have liked the Stat and Egg card? Who would have thought?
Spirit of Decay is crazy.
I think Spirit of Decay is very good. I think it becomes significantly worse in Wanderer. Because we have way more ways to deal with the graveyard.
I guess, yeah.
Evil Elemental Uprising.
I'm just gonna pair that thing up with Dark Alice, Rabbit Princess, and then we have an unbeatable combo in my black-white deck.
Ah, yes. Bad.
Correct.
He's a fixed point. He must die to summon a dragon. It's a fixed point. Yeah. Overall, these cards are cool. I like them. They get me excited. They have my brain churning both in the Wanderer environment and the New Frontiers environment.
New Frontiers environment?
It doesn't shift until August. My locals doesn't want to shift off of New Frontiers yet.
Too bad.
I can't. Sorry, I can't. I can't override 14 other people.
Yeah, you can. You're the best Force Wall man in the world.
I'm not.
No, you are. Shut up, Jeremy.
I can't force my entire community to change to Wanderer just because I said so.
You'll shame all of them on your next podcast.
I can't. I wouldn't do that to people. Because contrary to popular belief, I'm not a bad person. I wouldn't say popular belief. Contrary to the belief of some very spiteful people, I'm not a bad person.
I wonder who that's related to.
Anyway, so Mike, you didn't watch the Wanderer event, which I'm very disappointed in you for.
I tuned in for a little bit.
You tuned in for. I did see you in the chat at some point.
I was just very busy with Easter weekend and all the good stuff going on.
Yeah, that's very fair. It was a busy weekend. But we did have, I mean, let's talk tournament decks-wise. We don't need to talk about it because we're going to wait until Paul does the tournament report. Context-wise, it was a holiday weekend, and we still had 86 players. And we saw new people. We saw old faces. We saw 32 different rulers that people played, which was pretty cool. Clearly, I mean, obviously in the top 16, it was, I would put the top 16 deck-wise at about 12 unique decks in top 16. I would also say that the top 8 went down to like 11th place in terms of breakers. Like 8, 9, 10, 11 were all tied, and it came down to breakers, and those were also different decks than we had seen in the top 8. And the walkaway that I heard is that people had a really good time playing Wanderer. So with that in mind, I'm interested to hear, Mike, your thoughts about, you know, the transition happens in August, but we have this positive experience before August. What do you think that might do to impact the community's impressions of where we're headed?
I think it's going to do some really good stuff, man. I think the biggest thing is that people are going to look at this format. People are going to look at this event and say, there were a lot of really broken cards in this, and I'm scared that Wanderer is going to be broken. Until you realize that every 3 months, they're going to look at tournament details, make effective changes based on that. And the fact that, you know, we saw these combo decks, we saw these control decks, we saw things that were very strong, nothing seemed overbearing, but because we have these FTK enablers, there's room enough to where if the FTKs get out of hand, if they start topping too often, then we'll see some change happen.
Yeah,
and
well,
that's very important to take home.
Yeah, like Rustin said, it was the Wild West with the smallest the ban list will ever be. And so, like, you have to take that into context. And also, again, you know, we talked about this on it too, and so I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, or if you agree or if you not. So we've talked before about the cards that leading into what we know of the Wanderer event, so like pre-looking at this meta, looking at what people played. The 3 cards we wanted to see on the ban list were Silmeria, Dance of Spirits, Turbulence, and Prisia, right? I think those cards still stand as being justifiable for a May ban list. I do not believe that after the results of this event that anything else needs to be banned in May. I think that there are cards that should go on a watch list, namely being Isis or My List, and a couple other ones that I have in my mind. Watch them to see what happens. But when you take into the context of what was played, what sideboards looked like, and the fact that this is literally the first Wanderer event with, Wild West format, people trying all kinds of stuff, I do not think what we saw in this event justifies adding any new cards to that 3 cards we want for May. Watch it for August, but for May, I think we're where we are. Thoughts? Would you agree, disagree?
The weirdest thing is that those 3 cards that we think should be banned, which I fully agree with, didn't dominate the format, didn't dominate this event, which is very interesting, but I think it's also a piece of that pie comes from the fact that, people were focusing in on very specific combo-oriented or control decks. The combo control decks they were playing did not need any of those broken pieces. They just needed the inbound synergy that you get from Wanderer as a format itself. If you want to play just 40 good stuff, you're going to find Prissy in there. If you're playing, the best aggro deck of the format, you're playing the Violet with the Turbulence. And if you're just trying to make somebody want to never play the game again, you just dance the spirits to them until they want to cry. And that's just the 3. That's the 3 there that have the most significant power
overall, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, outside of context and meta calls, those 3 cards have just the flat strongest power, right?
This tournament in particular was enough to say, clearly synergies are the most important thing in Wanderer. What your deck does to beat the meta as a whole, or what your deck does to beat your opponents in a fashion that is most consistent, the quickest, most consistent combo will win in Wanderer. And that's the most important thing to take home about it.
At least right now. At least if it's not respected, right? Because if you look at the top 8 lists, there was literally no real consistent protection for Academy Guard, Intimidate, Amaterasu's Foresight, stuff that you would think would shut down those kinds of pop-off decks that's very easy to play. Those weren't being respected. So then the question is okay, well, now that those decks are known and those sideboard deck options are good, are those combo decks going to have nearly as much competitive success? Because I will say, again, in our top 8, we got into it anyway. In our top 8, there were, if you put the 2 My List Moodstarts together as being essentially the same deck, even though they're late game combo, the combos looked a little bit differently, but it was kind of doing the same thing.
The My List
Moodsdart lists were the 2. We did have 7 different decks, and it wasn't just combos. And we saw things, success, we saw things stumble, we saw those kinds of things. So it's important to keep in mind, how does that now change now that they're known, right? Now that that top 8 is known, could that top 8 repeat itself even with another set after it? That's the point in time where you start to look at, okay, cards that were on the watch list do need to get hit. So, to answer some of the questions, 7th through 12th was all 13 points. It was crazy. Most played card in top 8 was Lorite. It's Mooj, drawing every card a turn, drawing every turn. Well, filtering every turn. It's just a reflect refrain idea. Mindless producing extra will. Vampire. Personally, I see Sherry as the Leonardo da Vinci of FOW, not just because she was way ahead of her time, but because in my eyes she is an omen of what FOW's power level will eventually become. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I can see it happen.
That's fair.
It is fair.
Especially with us going to Wanderer only, you got to power creep the next set if you want to sell more cards.
Yeah, but I also think that it'll be interesting to see with more eyes on Wanderer and now a consistent ban list, more eyes on Wanderer, how things will be, how the additional tool of a ban list can also be used to tweak and modify where the flow is of a format, if that makes sense. Right? Because like in New Frontiers, it's for the past 2 years and even beyond then, it's been all about the reaction, right? It's been all about being reactive. This weekend was in the Wild West environment, which is a great meta call, with people expecting the reactive of New Frontiers Plus being what people were playing, just taking the reactive New Frontiers Plus decks and bringing them in. This weekend had a lot of success from proactive decks. You know, so then that's a big shift. That's flipping it on its head, right? So now it's like, okay, well, do we stay in the proactive? Are we better respecting the proactive now? Do we go back to reactive? Like the flow of the format is gonna shift. There's always the issue of not thought expect. That's always the issue of the not thought expected. Once it's on the radar, things shift. I still feel like that leaves room for growth across the board. Maybe decks like Milas Moonshart might make it as it adapts, and other decks might come around to stomp the combos. Correct. Which is why after one event it goes on a watch list, right? Because I think that's the other thing too is watch lists versus ban lists. I think you have to have both actively going, and I do think that the community the company up to this point has been showing us that they actually kind of do have a secret watch list because of what we've been seeing of the Wanderer ban list for the past year and a half. While would be fun right now if it would be dead so fast, everyone is going into long games. Ryan Miles talked about the idea of unbanning Otherworld Dreams with me, and I was like,
I mean, it's a discard card at best.
I'm like, only if you ban Fair Spell.
Well, you can only have one. Pick one. You can only have one green. One will cancel.
Mm-hmm.
You either have Wall of Wind, Fair Spell, or Otherworld Dreams. Two of them and any combination cannot exist.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear here.
Yeah, for sure. There are things that justify going. Cave. There are things that need to go on a watch list. I think that whatever gives infinite mana on a player's first turn is inherently broken. Yes, but also no. If you look at the worthy of being on a watch list to see if it can repeat it, because that's the thing. When you run an experiment, you can get something to happen once, but the question is, can you get something to happen consistently? Right? So the experiment before was we walked into a Wild West meta and we did this and we had success with it. So then the question is to be able to weed out the variable of the Wild West factor. Can the deck repeat its success now that it is known? Right? You have to try to, because that's how you isolate a card being like what we need to ban. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense.
Right? So like in a Wild West meta, go ahead.
No, I was about to say just something to talk about in general about Otherworld Dreams is that there's so many cards that cheat their mana costs that like Otherworld Dreams can sometimes just shoot you in the foot. I think. Like like you play out a Magical Dragon, and your opponent's like, "Oh, I can't let that resolve. I'm going to Otherworld Dreams it." And the Otherworld Dreams in an Athena that makes your opponent discard sack something. It's like, I don't know. There's something kind of cool about that.
K Mantero, isn't top 8 proof enough though? I mean, no. We can't. You can't ban things after just one event. Like you have to take into the context of the event. I think banning. We talked about this during the stream. Of the idea of banning from emotion or banning from precedent. The emotional response to seeing this Isis deck or the Isis and the Magical Dragon deck in a Wild West format where they weren't expected or known to just snap ban something after just one event of success sets a really bad precedent for what the ban list is and what the actual environment becomes. Because then it becomes a wild, crazy roller coaster where bans are fast and loose, and it makes things unstable. A ban based on precedent is the idea of, okay, we've had one event. Let's look at the context of why this deck was so good. Let's do... There it is! He lost connection right at the end. let's look at why the deck was so good and the factors of it. Analyze to see if it is the card itself or if the context that the card was played in or the environment that the card was played in contributed to its success. And if it was just the card itself and those other things really didn't have an impact, so like we took the deck, we put it in a different environment, it had the same exact results, then you can take an action on it. 2 steps. In my mind, there's always 2 steps before banning a card. Initial success, put it on a watch list, run it in a different environment with a different context that's more favored against it, and then if it's still successful, ban it. That's, to me, that's the process for setting good precedent for making consistent bans and keeping an environment more stable. That's me. You might disagree, and that's okay, but that's my breakdown.
It's not the doctor saying unban Hook. Not only are you wrong, you're allowed to have opinions, but if they're obviously wrong opinions, I can't let them stay, man. I don't know what to tell you.
People don't like being killed by... The other thing, too, that I think is important is people don't like being killed by combo decks.
True.
People don't like it. So
people
it naturally...
People don't like watching their opponent play solitaire. We have games for that. It's called Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! We
get it. I like... which is a very fair reaction to have against those decks, right? But it's very important when you're talking about impacts that would have on the game as a whole, or like choices that are made that would then impact the game as a whole, to recognize the influence in your thought process that's coming out of your emotional reaction to the loss, right? So, like you said, Caveman, I'm glad that my explanation cleared things up in terms of my approach and why I don't think we can see the cards banned immediately. That being said,
let me do talk good.
I am watching them, and I do believe that they should belong on a watch list. Stated how Wizards of the Coast did the ban list after the first Modern tournament. If they have a turn they want the gameplay to be, you could be harder on your bannings. Yeah, you're right. If the company was like, we are going to curve it so that no one can die before turn 3, and the company announced that as an intention in the environment, then yeah, you could see some more proactive hits. We haven't had that statement yet.
I remember when the Wanderer ban list committee came out after company hands changed originally. There was a lot of talk between myself, Cal, Tuma, and Steph Shaw about that exact turn stop. And the biggest point was the Umar Heroic Epic combo where you could kill somebody turn 3. And I was adamant on saying turn 4 should be the earliest you can get a consistent kill with a 2 to 3 card combo. And everybody else was saying turn 3 probably is. And to this day, I still think that the turn 4 idea is correct.
Yeah, and that's what? Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And Cave, to clarify, you're not being emotional about it. I just speaking to the general consensus of there is an emotional component that most people experience when they sit down and get solitaired. For instance, Toby, you're in the chat, and I love you, but I definitely had to mute you after that game 1 in top 4. I could not have your microphone be on while you were having a rough moment there, right? And so that again, Mike, just speaks to what you said before about the turn 4 or nothing earlier than turn 4. Thank you, Mega Drybone. We appreciate the super chat. Appreciate having you here. The thing about the Umir deck.
Anyway,
the thing about the Umir deck was that regardless of matchups, for the most part, that deck executed its combo very, very early, and so it got killed. And so it got axed. So then the question becomes with this My List Mood Start is, will it have the same results regardless of environment? And if it does, you axe it. Unless the company does just, again, like you said, want to come out and just say, nothing before turn 3, axe it.
It's a Drain Life combo, I see. Understandable. Thank you for bringing that up, Caveman.
Prosperous Plume? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just infinite draw and infinite mana that just draws into literally Schrodinger's observation.
The biggest problem is that most of the games can be won in turn 1, turn 2.
I agree.
yes and no. I mean, we've talked about that before. Decks can capitalize to win in that environment, but most games between two people who are properly respecting each other don't end that fast. Right? Decks don't exist in a vacuum.
No way.
And you can't make bannings based on the concept of a deck in a vacuum. Just saying.
Yeah, because if you could, you'd ban Pregnant Lady because you can just OTK.
Yeah, exactly. I would ban Pregnant Lady.
OTK's turn 3.
Yeah,
it's insane. It's past by turn 4.
Nothing about how many Kaguya and Alice showed up and didn't top. I mean, I think that so we can speak to that, Jesse. Alice topped. Anyway. Alice topped. And Kaguya topped. Both of them made it into top 8. Both of them were, if I remember looking back at the list, both of them were playing a mix of old cards and new cards. And a lot of what we saw from the Alice, from what I could see from the deck list, a lot of the Alice order and Kaguya order decks were truly playing dual cluster decks with dual stones, which is not where the strength of those decks lie when transitioning into the Wanderer environment. There are very good cards that those decks can bring to the table to boost themselves up in the Wanderer environment, and I think what we saw from a lot of the people is that they didn't do that, which, to their credit, if they're a newer player, might not have, because we haven't gotten to the Wanderer full transition yet. We haven't gotten to the Wanderer supplemental set that's coming out. People that might have picked stuff up. So again, that's a context too. So I would be curious to see if next environment, maybe people have some more cards. So September, but I imagine we'll probably, I think that there is a very good chance that some people, whether it be a circuit that we're working on with CCG Prime, just saying, or some other events might happen before September. So it'll be interesting to see if, as people get more cards, if those Kaguya decks and Alice decks evolve and if they can have more success. Clefadunk, yeah, in theory everyone has turn 2 kills, but in practice, like, almost all games go long. Yeah. Nice, says hello, dual stones and shock stones. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, we've seen, and that's not new to Wanderer, Clefadunk and Min. That's not new to Wanderer. That's been New Frontiers for the past 3 years. Has been, this deck, if you stumble and aren't properly respecting me, I can kill you. But if you are properly respecting me, we're going to be playing footsies for a bit. Heck, that was the case even in the environment where Mike got his invite to Worlds. Where if
all I had to do was count to 3 and I won the game.
If his opponent didn't respect him, that was all he needed to do, right? But if you watch the matches in environments where his opponent did respect him, we had to place them back and forth. We had to place and get to stone.
My duel against Paul Martinson went to like turn 8. We were both playing the same deck.
Yeah.
Like
you both had like 6. You both guys had like 7 stones.
We were like,
yeah. Hi, it's Jordan. No, man, I heard you say something about not mixing Wanderer and New Frontiers well, and just stared at my deck list and knowing I was one of those people. But Jordan, you top 8'd, my dude, in your 2nd GP ever. Good job, my dude. Congrats.
Proud of you.
And also Rustin. Good on you, man. Top 8. And Toby, 2nd place, man.
There were a few words for Toby, but Toby had a few words for us all.
Hey-oh.
Hey.
Good to see Steph. But 1, 2, banana, 3. Crap. Couldn't get to. I will say, though, Mike, it does have the most hilarious moment. You do have, I won't say my most hilarious moment, because Rustin has now captured that forever with drawing his first 2 games. But there was the moment in time where you went through the loop 3 times without realizing what you, like, missing a step and going net neutral in the loop.
To be fair, I had been on autopilot for 7 rounds before that.
Yeah, honestly,
I
more events.
Get a medal for what I was doing.
Yeah. So, like, for those of you who don't know, it was a life loss combo that had like a bunch of different steps, and at the end of it, you ended back where you were plus 1 counter for Shadow X. And so then you just did the loop over and over and over again to generate as many counters as you needed to kill your opponent. Mike went through the loop 3 times without successfully generating the +1 extra counter.
Fun story about that entire tournament. I forgot the part of the combo that actually puts the extra counters on Shadow X. So
Yeah.
all I was doing was just looping through my deck and discarding my opponent's hand until I got enough for a perfect Loki to have exactly 4 can board with no cards on my opponent's hand or field. That was it. I didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
I learned the deck the night before.
Hey, got you there. But that's it for us for tonight. We look forward to doing spoilers again with you next week. There will be no feature match this week, but we are working on getting caught up on deck profiles. Apologize for the delays there. But we'll be back next week with more spoilers and more. Paul is finishing up the top cards for Wanderer. The top multicolor and Void, I think, is all that we're missing still at this point. So we'll go into that. But until next time, this has been myself, Demo73, and I've been joined, as always, by Mike Rance.
It's me, Paul Reisman. I'm going to say the Genshi Tensai is my favorite of the multicolored cards. I think it's the best, and I'm going to put it at number 1 in my top 20 cards that are multicolor.
Sounds good. And until next time, class dismissed.